Welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with some more updates coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got two huge stories we're going to share with you here today. We're going to start off with this one that you see here on your screen, as Ukraine blew up two distilleries in Russia last night. These were in the Voronezh region, probably about 50 to 100 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. And they struck two of these distilleries last night with drones. I've got video footage to show you here today, just like the one you see here on your screen, as a massive fire had broken out at this facility after it was struck. I even have video footage showing one of these distilleries being hit directly with a drone, and you're going to be able to see the blast after this thing comes under attack. So we're also going to be talking about NATO today as well. Looks like we have NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte coming out and confirming that North Korean troops are currently fighting against Ukraine, and they are now deployed to the Kursk region. Now, we heard about this several days ago, but this is big now that we have NATO coming out also and officially confirming this. This means most likely that NATO allies are going to start moving to make maneuvers to counter against the North Koreans that are showing up, and we even heard some reports just over the weekend as well that North Korea could be deploying yet again another 10,000 North Korean troops over to Russia. So North Korea is definitely getting involved in this war. It's looking more and more like it every single day. So I've got updates regarding that as well. Then numerous other things I want to share you in regards to this war. So let's go ahead and start hopping into the news. First, we're going to be talking about these distilleries coming attack. Then we will talk about the NATO confirmation of North Korean troops in Russia. Then we'll move on. So let's hop on over here real quick. I've got a couple paragraphs I want to show you here from Newsweek. Ukraine takes out fuel used by Putin's war machine. This was published just today on October 28th, 2024. And it says down here, Kiev targeted at least two Russian distilleries overnight, according to Ukrainian and Russian sources, as Ukraine plugs away with its efforts to cut Moscow off from resources supporting its grinding war effort. Drones attacked another distillery around 150 miles from the Ukrainian border. Andriy Kovalenko, an official with Kiev's National Security and Defense Council, said to post to messaging app Telegram on Monday. Kovalenko said in a separate statement that drones had attacked a distillery in Krasnoye, I think is how you pronounce that, just northwest of the Aninsky district. Russian distilleries make rocket and aviation fuel explosives, Kovalenko said. So just in case you were wondering, why would they attack a distillery? Doesn't make any sense. Obviously, it just creates, alcohol for them to drink, right? Well, no, apparently the Russians use this for military purposes as well, to make rocket, aviation fuel, and explosives, okay, according to Ukraine. Also, Alexander Gusev, Voronezh regional governor, said in a post to Telegram early on Monday that Ukrainian drones had attacked two unspecified enterprises in the region overnight. Okay, so from what we understand, two of these distilleries were attacked in separate cities or towns inside the Voronezh region. And again, I've got video footage to show you guys. So we're going to hop on over here to X now. Let me show you some of this video footage coming out from Russia. Then we're also going to talk about NATO and North Korean troops here in just a moment as well. So for Mosin Technical, Ukrainian drones reportedly hit a Russian alcohol distillery tonight in Novokopyorsk. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, in Voronezh Oblast. The facility is burning. Okay, so we got a 10-second video clip here, and this video is going to show a direct impact from a drone, so just get your ears ready. It is very loud when this explosion goes off. Take a look. Okay, so if you notice, the facility was already on fire. There's something flying right here too. That's insane. This facility was already on fire prior to the impact of this drone. You could actually see the drone coming in right there. It's very tiny to see. Yeah, it looks like it took multiple hits from drones just from this video footage alone. Was just one of these facilities, okay? So this is the first one in the town of Novokopyorsk. So again, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So there was this one and then also one in Anna. So this is another video that we just showed you guys. We'll pull it up full screen just so I can show you guys here from Igor Sushko. Russia, alcohol distillery destroyed by Ukrainian drones in Novokopyorsk in Voronezh region. Okay, so just 11 seconds long. We'll just take a look at it full screen real quick, and then we will move on. Okay, so definitely a massive fire here, as you can see on your screen, at this facility in the Voronezh region. Okay, so we'll move on to this other distillery that got hit as well. This one, unfortunately, I don't have any up close footage, but it looks like somebody was able to capture some video showing a major bright light in the sky, which indicates that this facility was hit and burning. So from Max 24, a distillery in Anna, Voronezh region was also attacked. So we got a 5-second clip. It's going to show a lady from her home. You're going to hear a baby crying in the background because it was filmed inside their house. And they're showing the night sky lit up over here from this fire. So let's take a look at this.
Прям вид из моего окна. Прикол вообще.
Okay, so there you go. You can definitely see a major fire over here in the background. It's obviously lighting up the sky over here. And some lady with her child was recording this from her home. She probably heard the explosion of this drone coming in. And it's obviously late at night, so it's probably really easy to hear that. So we also have a photo here that was taken as well, showing the night sky being lit up from these flames as well. So it looks like, again, 2 distilleries being hit last night inside of Russia. So we're going to move on now and talk about some other updates here. We also had a massive drone attack once again onto Ukraine last night. 100 UAVs were fired against Ukraine, according to Nexta. 66 of 100 UAVs shot down by Ukrainian air defenses forces this night, Air Force said. The military reports that 24 drones were locationally lost, while 4 more flew towards Russia and Belarus. Okay, so here's a little diagram that was shared from Ukraine's defense ministry. 100 UAVs once again flying into Ukraine last night, guys. And I've shown you guys video footage of these drones before. These Shahed 136s are absolutely massive, okay? They're literally the size of a house almost. And imagine 100 of these flying into Ukraine almost every single day. Usually we see anywhere from 60 to 100 on average flying into Ukraine. So very crazy. Looks like they were able to shoot down a good majority of them, according to Ukraine. Now we're going to talk about NATO here. Confirming the North Korean troops entering into the war. So we have this report here from Max 24. High-level delegation from South Korea will brief the North Atlantic Council about North Korea's troop deployment to Russia on Monday, according to Reuters. Ambassadors from NATO's Indo-Pacific partners, including Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and the Republic of Korea, have been invited to attend. Okay, so this came out a few hours prior to Mark Rutte's announcement. He was obviously briefed by these South Korean delegation, letting them know about North Korea obviously joining the war. So this came out prior to Mark Rutte's speech, saying that NATO confirms that North Korean troops have joined the war. So this was the official report from Mark Rutte here. There is a video. We're not going to watch it, though. It's almost 4 minutes long, so I don't want to bore you guys with a long speech with him, other than saying that North Korean troops have officially joined. So it says here from NOAA Reports, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte confirms Russia's use of North Korean troops in the war against Ukraine. North Korean forces in the Kursk region signal a significant escalation, exposing a NATO security gap, said Rutte. NATO condemns this as a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and a dangerous expansion of Russia's war. Rutte urged Russia and North Korea to halt immediately and called on NATO allies to boost military support for Ukraine. Okay, so we're most likely going to see lots of aid packages going over to Ukraine soon. Now that we're hearing NATO coming out officially confirming that Russia's use of North Korean troops, as stated here, against Ukraine. And as far as we know, they're only deployed to the Kursk region, and we have not heard of any fighting yet. I do have a couple reports talking about that, so we'll move on here. Glasnow's gone. Today, Ukrainian military said it hasn't had any combat contact with North Korean troops in Russia's Kursk region or taken any of them prisoner. Today, NATO confirmed troops from North Korea have been deployed by Russia in Kursk. Okay, so according to this information, it looks like it's a report from Pravda that Ukrainian military has not encountered the North Korean troops in the Kursk region just yet, but it's probably going to take some time. We're barely hearing that they've been deployed, so maybe they haven't been put out on combat missions yet. But who knows? We don't know if these North Korean troops are going to support, operations on the back end for Russia to maybe to release some of the Russian reserves to the front line. We don't know exactly what North Korean troops are going to do yet, but obviously Ukraine is concerned. They're going to have to fight against Ukraine or the North Koreans on the ground. Okay. Moving on now to Bliskovka, North Korea did not provide Kim Jong Un's elite troops to Russia for the war in Ukraine, according to the Wall Street Journal. Intelligence and video footage indicate that many of the soldiers sent are teenagers and young recruits. The soldiers appear short and thin, which may indicate a malnutrition problem in North Korea. NATO Secretary General Ruta, confirmed that Russia is recruiting soldiers from North Korea in the war against Ukraine. He called on the Russian Federation and DPRK to immediately stop these actions. So we actually watched this video probably about a week ago. I showed this to you guys of North Korean troops showing up in the eastern side of Russia for training, and you were kind of able to tell in this video that many of these were North Korean soldiers, if not all of them. And what some sources are saying here is that North Korea did not supply their elite troops, that these are probably just younger conscripts that are not, well trained, ready for battle or anything like that, possibly indicating that they most likely won't make a huge impact on the battlefield. But we'll wait and see what's going to happen here. It's definitely going to get interesting, and my number one question is, how is NATO going to respond to this? I've asked this several times before. I'm very curious to see what NATO is going to do to counter this, aside from just sending weaponry and supplies over to Ukraine. Will they supply troops at some point, or maybe extend and allow Ukraine maybe to strike targets in Russia? We don't know what's going to happen yet, but I'm very curious to see how this war is going to play out over the next few weeks. Also from Max 24, a group of nearly 200 North Korean defectors living in South Korea is pushing to deploy to Ukraine so they can launch a psychological warfare campaign against their former comrades. Now reportedly assembling in Russia, South China Morning Post. This band of ex-soldiers, each with 7 to 10 years of military experience, aim to leverage their insider knowledge of North Korea's military to disrupt and demoralize the troops sent to fight in Ukraine, exploiting their psychological vulnerabilities. So that would be very interesting, right? 200 North Korean defectors that currently living in South Korea may potentially deploy to Ukraine and back up Ukraine, give them intelligence knowledge of how North Korean soldiers fight. This would be very interesting. We even heard of South Korea doing this as well, deploying military advisors over to Ukraine to back them up, give them intelligence, maybe help out if they capture North Korean soldiers and take them prisoners so they can interrogate them, things like that. So definitely things are heating up over here, even on the Korean Peninsula, okay? Now we're going to move on here also to Nexta. Naumann Foundation. Russia could have transferred about $5.5 billion to the DPRK for arms supplies, according to the German Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Even according Friedrich, I think it's Naumann Foundation. Even according to the most conservative estimates, the value of arms supplies from North Korea to Russia exceed $1.7 billion. It is impossible to accurately estimate the volume of North Korean arms deliveries to Russia, as Pyongyang conceals data on arms exports. South Korean security services rely on satellite images and track sea routes. South Korea estimates that the total economic volume of the DPRK at $23.7 billion. Okay, I mean, this is just huge numbers, guys. Think about this. We already know that, millions and millions of rounds, especially artillery rounds, have been sent over to Russia alone. So I wouldn't be surprised that number's in the billions. But according to this information, roughly about at least $5 billion in arms supplies for Russia already just from North Korea. So North Korea is supplying a large amount of weaponry for Russia to fight this war. So pretty insane to be seeing that. Moving on now to Nexta. South Korea is considering direct arms shipments to Ukraine, reversing a policy that prohibits lethal aid to belligerent countries. Bloomberg quoted a senior South Korean official as saying, "In some of Seoul's large stockpiles of artillery shells are sent to Kyiv and Pyongyang continues to supply Russia, it would bring two of the world's most powerful artillery forces into the conflict," the publication wrote. South Korean Army K-9 self-propelled howitzers fire rounds during air and ground military exercises. And this was a picture of that right here. So we've been hearing about this a lot over the last maybe week or so, that South Korea is preparing to send weaponry over to Ukraine, especially artillery rounds. And this would bring obviously South Korea and North Korea into the conflict as well. So let's see if they choose to do that. They've been talking a lot about this recently. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update here to let you know that they're still heavily considering doing this. And we'll see if they do this moving forward. Okay, now also from NOAA reports, around 30 explosions were heard overnight in occupied Crimea. According to local residents, approximately 20 blasts occurred in I don't know if it's Zonkoy, I think it's Zonkoy district, with another 8 in Simferopol and Krasno Vardisk, if I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm butchering any of those names. But considering that we had drone attacks last night inside of Russia, wouldn't surprise me that Ukraine flew a few drones over to Crimea as well, and that's probably what this report is indicating. I did not hear of anything else, anything significant being destroyed or anything like that in Crimea, but we've seen Crimea taking attacks from, ATACMS, these British Storm Shadow missiles, and even drones targeting Crimea in the past. So most likely these were drones coming from Ukraine flying into Crimea last night is most likely what this report. So it looks like 30 explosions being reported last night in Crimea. Okay, this was also interesting too from Billy D3. Ukraine discovers Starlink on downed Russian Shahed drone, according to a report. Okay, this was from Newsweek. We're not going to pull this up and read it, but Newsweek reporting that Ukraine discovered Starlink being installed on some of these Russian Shahed drones that are flying into Ukraine. This is more proof that the Russians are using Starlink, and this obviously comes from Elon Musk. It's his company. So obviously, yeah, it looks like Russia's using a lot of Starlink when it comes to, with intelligence and internet to track these drones and make sure they hit their targets inside of Ukraine. We've been hearing a lot about this, that the Russians are using Starlink pretty heavily. So pretty unfortunate to be seeing that Starlink is being used against Ukraine, okay? So moving on to our next update, we're going to talk about Donald Trump a little bit. I got a couple posts here. I want to bring you some updates about what he plans to do if he becomes president, as obviously we're just about roughly about a week away from the elections in the United States. So it says here, from next to freezing the war, pressure on Putin, and no Ukraine in NATO, the Financial Times has revealed Trump's plan. Donald Trump has repeatedly said that if he wins the election, he will stop the war in Ukraine even before he takes office, and that he can do it in 24 hours. However, he did not explain how exactly he would achieve this. Judging by the latest information from Trump's entourage, he intends to conclude a kind of Minsk III agreement and put their implementation on Europe. Some idea of the plans of the Republican candidates in case they get into the White House was given a month and a half ago by Trump's partner in the election race, James David Vance. The peace plan could involve creating a demilitarized zone on the front line of contact between Russian and Ukrainian troops. The vice presidential candidate said it would have to be heavily fortified to prevent the Russian army from repeating the invasion, and in return, Ukraine would refuse to join NATO, preserving its sovereignty and the cost of neutrality. Shortly afterward, President Volodymyr Zelensky called Vance's proposal radical. Ukraine is simply being offered to give up its territories. Such an idea is unacceptable, he added. Financial Times sources told the publication that if Trump returns to the White House, he intends to act at breakneck speed to end the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Under Trump's plan, Ukraine would remain outside NATO, and the responsibility for peacekeeping would shift the European countries. The role of US and NATO would be minimized. The plan involves the creation of autonomous zones on both sides of the demilitarized line in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Trump will threaten even higher tariffs to force America's allies to spend more on defense and align their trade relations with the U.S. while keeping pressure on China. Okay, so a big part here is freezing the war, pressure on Putin, and no Ukraine in NATO. Okay, so they talked about creating like a demilitarized zone inside of Ukraine, kind of freezing the conflict, building a demilitarized zone that would be heavily fortified to protect Ukraine so that way Russia cannot attack them again. Would that work? Who knows? Kind of reminds me of what we see on the Korean Peninsula. That could possibly be a solution to end this war, but as we know from Volodymyr Zelensky, he's come out many times and said that he's not willing to give up the territories that Russia currently controls right now, that he wants those territories back. So who knows what's going to happen here, but I just want to share you some of these updates coming out in regards to Trump, as it's very possible Trump could be winning the election on November 5th. We'll see if he does win. If he doesn't, it would be Kamala Harris, and I would expect most likely that this war would continue. Who knows how long, as I haven't heard of her coming out saying that she would end the war or anything like that. If anything, probably just boost support for Ukraine to continue fighting. So it's definitely going to go one way or the other, depending on which presidential candidate makes it into the White House. Okay, so moving on to another update. Next to reports, Zelensky's office on Trump's potential victory. We are not afraid. Andriy Yermak stated that Ukraine is not afraid of Donald Trump winning the U.S. presidential election. He emphasized that none of the U.S. candidates wants to allow Russian dictator Putin to prevail. Okay, so looks like, according to Andriy Yermak, that Ukraine is not afraid of Trump getting into the White House and potentially ending this war. I mean, I would think they would be if they don't want to give up the territories that they're holding, but looks like they're not afraid of this, and clearly stating here that no U.S. candidate, whether it is Trump or Kamala Harris, is going to allow Russia to win this war. So let me know what you think about that down below. I'm curious to know what you guys are thinking. If Trump wins, how is this war going to play out? And if Kamala wins, what do you think will happen when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, okay? So a few more things to show you guys before we get you out of here from Byskovka in the Kharkiv region near Chuhuiv. Hopefully I'm saying that right, sorry. The Russians with a S-300 air defense system targeted a hangar, as a result of which tons of grain burned, National Police reported. It was wheat, sunflower seeds, and corn. The crop belonged to several different farmers and was stored in Malinivka. But after the attack of the occupiers, the hangar was completely destroyed. Okay, so this was actually reported yesterday on October 27th, that this hangar came under attack. And it looks like we had a bunch of wheat and grain that was destroyed from Russia in the Kharkiv region yesterday in attacks. So very sad to see that. I mean, this is food for people around the world, and why would Russia be targeting this and destroying this? Obviously, we've seen Russia repeatedly destroy lots of critical infrastructure inside of Ukraine, even their energy sites, and I wouldn't be surprised we start seeing more heavy strikes on energy facilities inside of Ukraine as it's now approaching winter. That would be something I could definitely see Russia doing to help, force Ukraine to collapse even further, as they would not be able to provide energy services to their citizens during the winter time. So don't be surprised if we start seeing that soon too. Also from Max 24, AFU are finishing the construction of fortifications in the Zaporizhzhia region. Head of OVA Fedorov reported. The second line is almost 99.9% complete. The third line will be completed conditionally in the coming weeks. The task is to make the Zaporizhzhia region a fortress. Okay, so the Zaporizhzhia region is right down here. And apparently they are beefing up their defenses here in the Zaporizhzhia region. I did see one report not too long ago, probably like in the last week, that Russian forces were apparently planning a major operation to push and try to take the Zaporizhzhia region next. So maybe that's why we're seeing this. I think Ukraine already knows that Russia is trying to push hard for Zaporizhzhia. And this is more in like the southeastern portion of Ukraine. So it looks like they have beefed up their defenses, 99.9% complete so far with multiple lines of defense. Okay, so that's good news for Ukraine. Hopefully they can hold out there. Also from Anton Gerashenko, the Russian army is currently advancing in Selidov, Donetsk region, and we are hearing reports of attacks on civilians. Okay, so Selidov is just a little bit southeast of Pokrovsk, that major transport and rail hub city on the Eastern Front in the Donetsk region, and Selidov is a pretty major city just southeast, and we've been hearing of heavy, intense fighting over here. So it says here, according to Ukraine's prosecutor's office, an investigation has been started into two incidents. Pictured below, Russian soldiers shot a civilian car with two people inside with automatic weapons. One of the passengers was injured, and Ukrainian armed forces who arrived on the scene shortly after the shooting managed to drag the man to safety and administer first aid. Media are also reporting that the advancing Russians have shot and killed two women. There are also other reports of bodies of civilians found in residential areas on the territories taken over by Russia where fighting did not take place, suggesting that Russia is once again openly targeting non-combatants against all rules of war and human decency. Okay, so apparently here's some pictures of Ukrainian soldiers dragging some man who potentially was shot in his vehicle. This was probably some innocent civilian that was targeted. Almost kind of seems like possibly could see some gunshots that were some bullets that were striking his window here as he was driving. And we've been hearing lots of this from Russian soldiers. Obviously, eliminating Ukrainian soldiers that are taken captive. We've heard of lots of residents in many of these towns being shot at before. So this is very common of what we see from Russia. And if this is true, definitely a very sad situation. Should not be happening, but we continue to see the aggression from Russia's side targeting many innocent civilians, not only with weapons, but even, bombs, missiles, all kinds of weaponry being dropped on Ukrainian civilians. Okay, so very sad to see that. Finally, one last thing I want to show you guys here from War Translated Dimitri. Due to significant shortages and price increases, some Russian grocery shops are now placing butter into anti-theft boxes. So look at these. Some pictures here of butter literally in anti-theft boxes to prevent them from being stolen in some of the grocery stores in Russia. As we've been hearing that, Russia literally just raised their key interest rates at their central bank. I think up to 21% now, up from 19%. They literally just raised it, I think, from 18 to 19, probably just about a couple months ago. Then they're raising it again, which is indicating that high inflation is definitely taking over the country, and this war is definitely battering the economy of Russia. So, many of these grocery stores are having to take matters into their own hands and try to defend their products on the shelves by literally placing butter inside these theft-proof cases. So very crazy to be seeing that. This is a major sign that Russia's economy is definitely struggling, and price increases are battering the economy as well. And this is not only a problem in Russia, though. We are definitely seeing this all over the world. I mean, even when you go to, if you live in the United States, you go to places like Walmart, if you'll notice there, you probably already seen it if you shop there, so many aisles now are literally just caging everything off, okay? They cover everything up with glass windows and doors, and you literally have to go call somebody to come and grab something for you. So we're definitely seeing major inflation all across the world, and this is forcing people to take desperate maneuvers and try to steal stuff for their families. And it's just very sad, if we lived in an economy in different countries that economies were stable and things were not out of control and expensive, we wouldn't be having these problems. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in, okay? So it's definitely hard times out there. But yeah, guys, just wanted to share some updates coming out from Ukraine and Russia. And I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.